Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to add our update route that will actually update the items inside of the database. Now if you remember from our RESTful routing, the update route is a put request. Thus far we've not had to do any of those. We've done get requests, we've done post requests, but now we're going to do a put request. Sometimes you'll see this as a patch request instead of a put request. There's minor differences between the two, but we're just going to stick with put. It's much more straightforward and to just stick with the one instead of trying to differentiate between the two. In order to do this, however, we're going to have to install some middleware. The reason for this is HTML forms only allow you to send two types of requests, get and post. So we're not able to send a put request from an HTML form, but we need to. So what we're going to use is some middleware called Method Override. Method Override is an extremely popular middleware. You'll notice that it has 500,000 downloads every week. That basically lets you use put, delete, patch, all that stuff inside of HTML forms and other things, other clients that don't support it. So we're going to install it the way we always do. npm I Method Override. While that installs, let's look at the documentation. The way that it works is you basically, after you import it and you app.use it, so right here it says require method override, do your whole app, everything. But the way this works is you can either use a header or you can use a query. We're going to use a query because it's simpler. If you're interested, you can learn about using headers and it's super useful. It's cool that you can do that. However, we're just going to use a query because it's easier. And the way that you do is you app.use method override and you call it as a function passing in a string. Now this string by default you can just use underscore method is kind of the convention, but you can use anything here that you want. This is what you're going to use as a query string when you submit it. So you'll notice here that the query string, the action is submitting to resource query, the question mark and any URL is a query, question mark, then they use that string that they put in right here equals delete or put or patch or whatever. So whatever you want to pass here is fine. You'll see underscore method in 99.9% of the time. So that's what we're going to use, at least I'm going to demonstrate, but you can use whatever you want if you prefer something else, and then you just set that equal to whatever you want it to actually be. So this should be done. Yep, that's finished. Perfect. So we have installed method override. Now let's go ahead and build out our route. So inside of routes, comic.js, and we have our edit route right here, and now we need our update route. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a put request, router.put. And it's going to be to /:id, because remember we're having /comics/id. Because of the app.js, when we're using this, we are prepending comics in front of it. So it'll be /comics/id. And since we're using a put request, it's different than the get request that we've got up here. So that's how we know. And we're going to request response as always. If I could type. And then we need to do basically the same thing we do up here with our post request. So I'm just going to copy all this real quick and put it down in here because we still need to get the genre to lowercase. We still need to build our body real quick. And this is all the exact same. But then underneath, instead of comic.create, we're going to do comic.findById and update. I love Mongoose's method names. They're so clear as to what exactly this does. So this takes two parameters. Actually, it's going to end up taking 3 parameters because we're going to pass in options. But by default, it'll take 2 parameters. The first one is the ID of the comic you're looking for, or the item you're looking for. So request.params.id. And remember, that's just going to be this right here, be the ID of the item. So it's going to find this item, and then it's going to update it to match this right here. I'm going to call this updated comic instead of new comic to be a little bit more clear. And then we're going to pass one additional option. And let's just look this up in the Mongoose find by ID and update. And it'll tell you, it takes 3 parameters, 2 of them are optional. The first one is the ID, the second one is the update object, and the third one is the options. We're going to use options.new, and we're going to set this to true. By default, this will return the old document before it was updated. We don't want that. We want the new document after it's been updated. So we're going to set new equals true so that it'll give you the object after the update has been applied. And there's more options here if you're interested in them. But we're going to pass new true. So we're passing that in, then we're going to execute that query, and then updated comic is going to be passed in here. Actually, I don't want to have name collisions, so we'll call this comic body maybe, or let's call this comic. We're not using comic anywhere else, so we'll call this comic. And then we're going to have updated comic here. I just want to go ahead and console.log the updated comic, and then res.redirect back to /comics /request.params.id. So what this is doing is this is building the comic body, building the item body, in my case it's a comic. Then it is finding the comic in the database based off of the ID we're passing in, and then we are updating it to match this new body that we're getting, and this body is all coming from the form. And then it's going to return, because of this option, the updated version. So now that we have the updated version, we're going to log that to the console and then redirect back to the show page for that comic. Again, the only reason we're doing this is so that we can see it in the console. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to show it to you that that's an option in case it comes up. So if it doesn't work, .catch error res.send error. Our semicolons. All right. Oops, I have an extra bracket in there. There we go. Let's save, run no daemon, and see if she works. So right now, let's go back to our comics. We have this ugly one, ZDFB. So let's go to the edit route. Right here, we'll give it a title, X-Men. And that's really all we need to update. Hit submit. That brings it back. Uh-oh, it looks like we forgot to change the method, the action in our form, because that's still sending a post request. We don't want it to send a post request. I installed method override and never used it. Silly, silly me. So we know that's not working like it's supposed to for obvious reasons, so let's go into our views, into the comics_edit, and update this action, because right now it's sending a post request to comics. What we want it to do is send a put request to /comics/id. So we're going to go to /comics/ and we get the ID passed in as comic._id. But now we have to add that method override part. So we're going to do $_method equals put. And the actual method over here still needs to say post. But by doing that, we're telling Express, using the method override middleware, which we still haven't set up, by the way, that it needs to actually modify that so that it's not a post request, that it actually treats it as a put request. So we've saved that. Let's go into our app.js and set up the method override. So first, we need to import method override, const method override equals require method override. And then let's set it up in the config section. And all you have to do, if you're interested, I'm just reading it off of here. App.use method override. You just paste it in there. And again, this string can be whatever you want, but that's the convention. So save. Server will restart. There it goes, no typos. So let's refresh this page real quick. Go into X-Men here. Go to /edit. Change the name to X-Men Disassembled. That was one I was testing earlier. Submit. There we go. It has been updated. Even if we go back to the main page, we can see that that is the new name for it. It's not just showing it that once. It's actually persisting. It has updated that inside of the database, and it has not modified any of the other stuff. So let's go ahead and try and modify all the other stuff. Description is description here, author here, publisher here, date, we'll make it, I don't know, let's do May 1st. We just gotta know. Series here, issue 555555. Genre will be action, we'll make it color, and link to the image, let's just find an X-Men image. There we go. Copy the image address. So this way it's going to be an actual image. Submit. There we go. And that is working. We have the author, publisher. The date is May 1st. Like I said, series here. We updated the issue, action, and true. So all of this has been updated. Our update seems to work. So we're good to go. And that is it for this video. In this video, we did two things, really. We first installed method override so that we can use put and delete requests from inside of HTML forms, which is normally not possible. And then we created the update route and then built out logic that actually makes that work, to actually send that information to the database and update any items that we want to. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.